The house felt emptier than ever since Emma's husband had passed away 2 years ago, and the silence in every corner pressed down on her heart in ways she never expected. She moved through the rooms carefully, arranging small things, straightening old photo frames, and glancing at the faded curtains that fluttered with the cold breeze from the window. The nights were the hardest. She would sit by the fireplace, cup in hand, staring at the flickering flames and remembering the warmth that once filled the house, the laughter and chatter that now seemed only like memories trapped in time. The walls echoed with quiet loneliness, and even the occasional sounds of neighbors walking past or cars on the street felt distant, as though separated by a glass she couldn't break. Yet, in the midst of the empty rooms, there was one presence that made the house feel alive, even in its quiet: her son, Alex. At 23, he had become her anchor, her constant, the person who seemed to hold both the weight of his own young life and the responsibility of caring for her. College classes, work, friends, all of it never stopped him from coming home to make sure she was okay, to make sure dinner was ready, to quietly tidy the kitchen or lay out her favorite books so they were easy to reach. That evening, the first snow of the season began to fall, soft and slow, covering the sidewalks and trees in white, and Emma shivered as she reached for the shawl that barely kept out the cold. She had just sat down by the window, wrapped in her thoughts, when Alex entered the room, brushing the snowflakes from his coat, his brown eyes scanning her with immediate concern. "Mom, you shouldn't sit here all alone," he said softly, almost as if he could feel the loneliness pressing in on her. "Come, let's sit by the heater." The warmth of his presence filled the room more than the heater ever could. She smiled at him, feeling a quiet comfort she hadn't realized she'd missed so much, and as he pulled a chair close and sat beside her, she noticed the small, careful ways he made her feel safe, a gentle hand on her shoulder, a reassuring smile, the way he adjusted the blanket around her. Emma thought about how much she relied on him, not just for the chores or the meals, but for the sense that she was not completely alone in the world, that someone cared deeply for her well-being. And yet, as much as she appreciated him, a flicker of worry crossed her mind. Was she taking his presence for granted? The way he moved around the house, quietly cleaning or organizing, made her realize that he was growing up fast, that these moments of care might be fleeting, and she felt an unexpected pang of guilt mixed with gratitude. That night, Alex stayed longer than usual, lingering by the window after they had finished their tea. Emma noticed a strange, thoughtful look in his eyes, something unspoken that made her heart beat a little faster. He didn't say anything, only watched the snow fall with a quiet intensity, and for the first time in months Emma felt the house hold its breath with her, waiting for what might come next. She wondered about the layers of emotions Alex might be carrying, the depth of his thoughts that went unspoken, the small, silent sacrifices he made every day just to keep her safe and comfortable. She realized then that love could take many forms, not always dramatic or loud, but subtle, quiet, and unwavering, and she felt it in every small gesture he made, in every glance, in every touch, and in the way he simply existed around her. The house, once cold and empty, suddenly seemed warmer, not because of the heater or the fireplace, but because of Alex's presence, the calm, reliable light that he brought into every corner, filling it with life and unspoken devotion. She wanted to tell him how much she loved him, how much his presence meant, but the words tangled in her throat, heavy with emotion she didn't know how to express. Instead, she simply reached for his hand, and when he noticed, he squeezed hers gently, his eyes meeting hers in a moment of silent understanding. It was in that shared, quiet space that Emma realized her home was not just a building, not just a collection of memories, but a place made alive by love, care, and the constant presence of her son, the one person who understood her heart without her ever needing to speak. And as she looked at him, the snow still falling outside, the soft glow of the heater warming their faces, she felt a mixture of pride, tenderness, and a twinge of worry for the boy who had given so much of himself to her. She knew life would continue to move forward, challenges would come, and the loneliness of the past would sometimes return, but in that instant, she felt a profound gratitude for the bond they shared, a bond that was unshakable, gentle, and full of quiet, deep love. Emma leaned back slightly, resting her head on the chair and watching him, her heart both heavy and light, knowing that though words had not been spoken, the understanding between them was perfect. And yet, the thought lingered in her mind like the soft whisper of the snow. What was Alex thinking? What was the weight behind that thoughtful look she had seen in his eyes tonight? That quiet mystery pulled at her curiosity, leaving her heart fluttering with a mixture of anticipation and a subtle, unnameable emotion. As the evening stretched on, the wind outside whispering through the trees, Emma realized that tonight, like many nights before, she had witnessed something rare and precious: the unwavering, tender care of her son, a love that was simple yet profound, capable of warming even the coldest house, capable of filling her life with a sense of purpose and belonging she had almost forgotten. And as she closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth of his hand in hers, she silently promised herself that she would cherish these moments, the quiet evenings, the soft gestures, the unspoken understanding, because in Alex's presence, her home had found its heart again, and she would never take that for granted. Spring had barely begun to settle over the small town when Emma noticed a subtle change in Alex. He moved through the house with his usual care, yet there was a quiet hesitation in his gestures, a softness in his smiles that made her heart both ache and swell with affection. Every morning, he would appear in the kitchen with coffee and toast, his movements effortless but precise, making sure the cups were warm, the plates set just as she liked them, and sometimes he lingered near her chair, his gaze following her with unspoken concern. Emma found herself looking for excuses to spend time with him, lingering over breakfast or in the living room, watching him read or hum softly to himself while he worked on his school assignments. One afternoon, she stepped onto the porch with a cup of tea, expecting the calm solitude she usually cherished, only to find Alex already there, blanket draped over his shoulders, hands around his own cup, and a quiet patience in his posture that seemed to say, "I know you need company, even if you don't realize it." She smiled at him, her chest warming from the simple presence of her son, and he responded with a small nod, his eyes reflecting both tenderness and thoughtfulness. "You need to take care of yourself, Mom," he said gently, his voice carrying that familiar steady rhythm that somehow always calmed her racing thoughts. Emma laughed softly, shaking her head in mock protest. "And who takes care of you, Alex? You do everything for me." He didn't reply immediately, instead his fingers brushed against hers across the blanket, a fleeting touch that sent a ripple of emotion through her, an unexpected wave of closeness she had not anticipated. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the world outside the porch, the traffic, the distant laughter of children playing, the wind moving through the trees, disappeared, leaving only the quiet intensity of the connection between them. She felt her chest tighten, realizing that their bond was deeper than she had ever allowed herself to think, a quiet understanding built on years of shared struggles, mutual respect, and the gentle routines of everyday life. Alex's presence was no longer just comforting, it was magnetic in a way she could not easily name, a combination of care, attentiveness, and the soft maturity he carried despite his youth. The afternoons began to stretch long with these quiet interludes, filled with small talk about classes, favorite books, and memories of her husband, yet underneath the conversation was a current of emotion neither of them dared to label, a tenderness that hovered, unspoken but palpable. Emma found herself lingering near him more often, her gaze following his movements as he tidied the garden or carried groceries, noticing the way his hands worked with care, the slight crease of concentration on his forehead, and the subtle ways he made her life easier without ever asking for thanks. She began to treasure these ordinary moments with an intensity that surprised her, a mixture of gratitude, longing, and a wistful awareness that these days might not last forever. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees and painted the porch in gold, Alex sat beside her, closer than usual, and brushed a stray hair from her cheek with the gentlest of movements, and Emma's heart jumped at the simple gesture, a reminder of the intimacy and trust that existed in the space they shared. "Mom," he said quietly, his voice slightly hesitant, "there's something I've been meaning to tell you." The words hung in the air like a question without an answer, and Emma felt a shiver of anticipation and uncertainty. She searched his eyes for clues, finding only a seriousness that made her pulse quicken, a vulnerability that both frightened and intrigued her. She wanted to ask what it was, to understand the weight of the thoughts behind those words, but before she could speak, Alex stood, adjusting the blanket around his shoulders, and moved to the garden to check the flowers, leaving Emma with her racing heart and a soft, growing curiosity. The night stretched on with quiet sounds, the rustle of leaves, the distant hum of traffic, the occasional bark of a dog, and Emma could not stop thinking about Alex's words, about the intensity in his eyes, about the thoughtfulness that seemed to carry a hidden message she could not yet decipher. She realized how much she had come to rely on these small moments, the subtle touches, the shared silences, the way he looked out for her without being asked, and she felt both proud and humbled by the depth of his love and care. And yet, underneath her appreciation, a quiet worry stirred. She wondered about the thoughts Alex had not yet shared, the feelings he kept tucked away behind his gentle exterior, and whether this unspoken layer of their bond held surprises she could not anticipate. That evening, as she prepared for bed, she found herself standing by the window, watching the streetlights glow softly, thinking about Alex and the strange, tender shift she had noticed in him, the way his presence seemed to pull at her heart in new, subtle ways. The quiet understanding between them was profound, built over years of care, shared routines, and mutual dependence, yet tonight, it carried a delicate tension, a feeling that something important was on the verge of being revealed. Emma felt a mixture of excitement and unease, a warmth in her chest she couldn't name and a flutter of curiosity that kept her awake long after Alex had gone to his room. She thought about the afternoons spent together, the small gestures, the quiet conversations, the way he always seemed to anticipate her needs before she could voice them, and she realized that their relationship had grown into something rare and precious, a bond that blended care, affection, and an intimacy of spirit that could withstand loneliness and sorrow. Her mind wandered to the countless evenings of quiet companionship, the shared tea, the soft laughter, the gentle teasing, and she felt a sense of peace and gratitude that Alex was there to fill the house with life and warmth once more. And yet, the memory of his hesitant words, the strange pause, the unspoken message, lingered in her thoughts, making her wonder about the depth of his feelings and the meaning behind the small, tender gestures that had become so familiar. Emma realized that love could be expressed in many ways, not always loud or dramatic, but through the quiet attentions, the careful gestures, and the patience to simply be present for one another. The bond she shared with Alex had transformed the house from a place of quiet loneliness into a home filled with unspoken understanding, gentle affection, and a growing, intricate web of emotional connection that both comforted and thrilled her. That night, as she finally settled into bed, she thought about Alex's seriousness, the way he had lingered by the window, the intensity in his gaze, and she could not shake the sense that something important was approaching, a revelation that would deepen the connection between them in ways she could not yet predict. Sleep came slowly, filled with dreams of his hands, his smiles, the soft reassurance of his voice, and a quiet, growing anticipation of the conversation he had promised, leaving her heart full of warmth, curiosity, and a tender longing that would carry her into the days to come. The morning sunlight spilled softly through the curtains, warming the living room as Emma sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, yet her thoughts were far away, tangled with curiosity and anticipation about what Alex had said the night before. His words, "There's something I've been meaning to tell you," repeated themselves in her mind, and she found herself imagining every possibility, from something serious about school or life to something far more personal, something that would make her heart both race and ache. When Alex entered the room, carrying a small, worn notebook with a hesitant smile, her pulse quickened. She had never seen him appear both nervous and careful at the same time, and it made her wonder just how important whatever he wanted to share could be. He sat across from her, the notebook resting in his hands like a fragile treasure, and for a moment, neither spoke, the silence filled with tension and unspoken questions. Finally, he took a deep breath and admitted, his voice soft and slightly trembling, "I've been keeping a journal, about everything we've been through, about you." Emma's eyes widened slightly, and her fingers tightened around her mug as she realized the depth of what he was giving her, not just pages of writing, but a piece of his heart, a reflection of his love, care, and the countless moments she hadn't noticed he had remembered. She reached for the notebook, her hands brushing his, and he hesitated only for a second before letting her take it, his brown eyes searching hers for a reaction, for a sign that she understood how much courage it took to share such an intimate part of himself. She opened it slowly, the pages filled with neat handwriting, memories, reflections, little observations about how she always noticed when he was cold, tired, or anxious, and how he had watched her navigate life with grace despite her loneliness. Emma's chest tightened with emotion as she read, realizing that he had not only cared for her daily needs, cooked her meals, tidied the house, and managed his studies, but had also carried her emotional weight silently, recording it in these pages as if to honor her and their bond. She could feel the love behind every word, the dedication, the thoughtfulness that only a person who truly cherished someone could display, and tears welled in her eyes as she looked up at him, searching for answers in his gaze. Alex's fingers brushed hers again, a quiet reassurance, and he admitted, almost whispering, "I wanted you to know. I notice everything you do for me, Mom. And I love being the one who takes care of you." The room seemed to pause around them, the ticking clock, the distant sounds of traffic, even the hum of the refrigerator fading into nothing as Emma's heart filled with overwhelming warmth and pride. She reached across the table and hugged him tightly, feeling the steady strength in his arms, the gentleness in his embrace, and the simple, profound understanding that here, in this small kitchen, they had found a space where words were not necessary to express love, care, and connection. The journal lay open beside them, a testament to years of shared life, a reminder that bonds are often built quietly, day by day, in small gestures and subtle acts of devotion. Even as she hugged him, Emma realized that this bond went beyond ordinary mother-son love. It had layers of tenderness, understanding, and shared emotions that neither of them had needed to label to feel deeply. After they separated, Alex sat beside her, his hand resting lightly over hers, and together they read through the journal, laughter and tears mingling, stories revisited and remembered, each entry a bridge between their hearts. Hours passed as they lingered together, and Emma felt something shift inside her, the realization that love does not need dramatic declarations to be powerful, that care can be profound even in its simplicity, and that a person's devotion can speak louder than any words ever could. Yet as she read further, a certain passage caught her eye, a description of moments when Alex had felt deeply moved by her presence, the way she laughed at small jokes, the way she handled difficulties with grace, and the subtle way he admitted that her comfort was always on his mind, that seeing her safe and happy was a quiet purpose he had carried for years. Her heart pounded as she realized that the journal reflected not only gratitude but a deep emotional attachment, a tenderness that was both innocent and intensely heartfelt, a mature reflection of his love for her as a son, protector, and constant companion. She looked at him, seeing the slight flush on his cheeks, the hesitation in his smile, and felt a wave of emotions, pride, warmth, awe, and a bittersweet recognition of the fleeting nature of youth and closeness. The afternoon sunlight softened as they continued to read together, each page revealing moments she had never fully appreciated, and Emma understood that Alex had been silently giving her gifts every day, in meals, in small chores, in his presence, and now, in words captured carefully in ink. And yet, the final pages held something more personal, passages that hinted at feelings he had struggled to express, emotions that were deep, tender, and carefully framed, showing a young man's admiration, love, and emotional sensitivity in ways that touched her soul profoundly. She found herself leaning against him, absorbing the quiet power of his attention, feeling the rhythm of his heart as they sat side by side, and realizing that the bond they shared had matured into something extraordinary, a union of hearts, built on respect, care, and emotional honesty, creating a space of comfort, intimacy, and understanding that neither of them could find anywhere else. Emma thought about the years they had spent together, the routines, the challenges, the quiet evenings, and the unspoken support that had always been there, and she felt a profound gratitude for the strength and maturity that Alex had shown, a quiet heroism in his daily care and attention that she had never truly acknowledged before. As the shadows lengthened and the room grew dimmer, Emma closed the journal, her eyes meeting Alex's with a mixture of awe, pride, and love so deep it made her chest ache, realizing that these moments, this shared recognition of care and devotion, would remain etched in her memory forever. She hugged him once more, tighter this time, feeling the warmth of his presence and the unspoken promise of continued care and connection, and knew that no matter what challenges life might bring, they would face them together, their hearts bound by trust, love, and the quiet, enduring devotion that had grown between them. Yet as the night approached and the lights of the house flickered softly, Emma could not ignore a subtle sense of anticipation, a gentle curiosity about the deeper feelings Alex might have been holding back, a quiet question lingering in her mind about what else the journal might reveal, and how it would continue to shape their understanding of each other. That evening, as she prepared for bed, Emma felt a profound, almost overwhelming sense of closeness, a realization that life had given her a rare gift, a son who was not only thoughtful, capable, and caring, but emotionally present, aware, and tender, someone who could fill the house with warmth, laughter, and love without demanding anything in return. She knew that this chapter of their life together was only the beginning, that tomorrow and the days ahead would hold more discoveries, more shared moments, and perhaps more confessions that would deepen their bond even further. But for now, in the quiet of their home, Emma let herself feel complete, her heart full of appreciation, tenderness, and a love that had matured quietly yet powerfully over the years, a love captured in a small notebook, in a simple gesture, and in the steady, reassuring presence of her remarkable son. Spring had fully arrived, and the small garden behind Emma's house was bursting with color, the roses and tulips stretching toward the sun as if eager to share in the warmth that had returned to the home. Every morning, Alex would make Emma coffee exactly how she liked it, placing it on the small table by the window where sunlight streamed in, and she would watch him with a quiet smile, noticing the care in his movements, the way he adjusted her shawl, the way he hummed softly while setting down the toast or arranging the sugar and milk just the way she preferred. Emma realized that his presence was no longer just comforting, it had become essential, a source of joy she hadn't fully acknowledged until these mornings of shared routines and gentle conversations. The house that had once felt empty now hummed with life, filled with laughter, stories, and a quiet rhythm that only the bond between mother and son could create. Alex would sit beside her on the porch in the late afternoons, his shoulder brushing against hers, and they would talk about everything and nothing, from memories of her husband to his dreams for the future. And Emma found herself opening up in ways she hadn't for years, sharing thoughts and feelings she had kept to herself out of habit or fear of being lonely. One particular evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of pink and orange, Alex placed his hand over hers, and Emma felt a warmth that went beyond the comfort of routine or care. It was the recognition of a deep, unshakable bond that had grown slowly, tenderly, through shared life and love. "Mom," he said softly, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "I promise to always be here. Always." The words, simple yet profound, carried a weight of commitment that filled her chest with a mixture of gratitude, pride, and a quiet, thrilling joy. Emma smiled, her eyes glistening, and replied, "And I promise to cherish every moment we have together," feeling a surge of connection that made every past hardship seem lighter and every lonely day worthwhile. In that perfect silence, the world around them seemed to pause, the birds settling in the trees, the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant hum of traffic, all faded into the background as mother and son sat together, hands entwined, hearts beating in a quiet, shared rhythm. Emma reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point, the years of loss, the loneliness, the quiet evenings by the fireplace, and the small, thoughtful gestures Alex had made every day without expectation. She realized that these moments were more than ordinary acts of care, they were expressions of love, patience, and devotion that had transformed the house into a home, filling every corner with warmth and life. Alex, too, seemed aware of the significance of these moments, his eyes soft and attentive, his presence steady and comforting, and Emma felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the young man he had become, responsible, tender, emotionally intelligent, and deeply caring. They spent the evening talking about future plans, about small adventures they could take together, and about the simple joys of life, and Emma noticed how naturally the conversation flowed, how easy it was to share dreams and fears, and how secure she felt knowing he was there by her side. As night fell, they moved inside, the house glowing softly with lamplight and the reflection of the stars outside, and Emma felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that the love and care between them was not fleeting, but enduring, capable of carrying them through whatever life might bring. She thought about the difficult times they had faced, the emptiness that had once dominated the house, and how far they had come together, and she smiled, realizing that the bond they shared had grown into a sanctuary, a place of mutual support, understanding, and quiet, enduring joy. Later that night, as they sat by the fireplace, Alex recounted stories from his day, the small successes and challenges, and Emma listened with rapt attention, her heart swelling with pride at his resilience and maturity. She realized that caring for him was no longer one-sided. His presence, attention, and emotional support nurtured her as much as hers nurtured him, creating a balance of love that was rare and precious. The warmth in the room was more than physical, it was emotional, a tangible sense of connection, trust, and shared life that neither time nor circumstance could diminish. Emma thought about how much she had learned from him, how he had taught her patience, quiet strength, and the profound meaning of being truly present for someone, and she felt a deep sense of fulfillment that went beyond any material measure. The night deepened, but neither of them felt the need to rush or move away from each other. The quiet companionship, the shared smiles, and the occasional laughter created a rhythm that was comforting and sustaining. Emma reflected on the power of simple gestures, the way he always made sure her chair was comfortable, the way he remembered her favorite tea, the way he watched over her without making her feel helpless, the way he had shared his journal and his thoughts, revealing vulnerability and love in a way that deepened their bond. She understood that life's richness was not measured in grand events or dramatic moments, but in the small, consistent acts of care and love that built trust and connection over time, and Alex had shown her that in abundance. And yet, despite the calm and the happiness, there was a subtle thrill in knowing that their connection continued to grow, evolving with every shared glance, word, and gesture, a bond that was at once simple and extraordinary, ordinary and profound, a living testament to the beauty of family and emotional intimacy. As the night deepened, Emma and Alex finally moved to the porch to enjoy the cool evening air, wrapped in blankets and quiet comfort, watching the stars twinkle in the sky, their hands still intertwined, hearts full of understanding and gratitude, and she realized that the home they had built together was not defined by walls or furniture but by the love, care, and emotional presence they shared. Emma's thoughts drifted to the future, imagining more afternoons like this, more quiet evenings, more shared stories and laughter, and she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, with patience, tenderness, and unwavering support. In that moment, she felt complete, not in a fleeting or superficial way, but in a deep, abiding sense that life, despite its hardships and sorrows, had gifted her a love so powerful and enduring that it could fill every empty corner of her heart and home. She thought of all the times she had felt lonely or uncertain, and how Alex's presence had transformed that emptiness into warmth, security, and joy, and she silently thanked him over and over for being not just her son, but her companion, her support, and the living heart of their home. As the night wore on and the stars twinkled above, Emma rested her head against Alex's shoulder, feeling the gentle rise and fall of his breath, the steady beat of his heart, and a deep, unshakable contentment that only comes from knowing someone will always be there, quietly, unwaveringly, and with complete devotion. The home that had once been quiet and cold now pulsed with life and emotional richness, a sanctuary built on small acts of love, care, and the kind of emotional intimacy that could not be bought or taught, only lived. Emma knew that this bond, this presence, this constant support, would carry them forward through all of life's seasons, and she felt a gratitude so profound it left her breathless, a happiness so deep it filled every corner of her being, a knowledge that as long as they had each other, their hearts would remain warm, their home alive, and their lives enriched in ways that words could never fully capture. And as the first light of dawn began to filter through the windows, painting the walls in soft shades of gold, Emma and Alex sat together in quiet understanding, hands entwined, hearts full, ready to face each day with the enduring love, care, and connection that had transformed their lives and made their home a true sanctuary of warmth, tenderness, and emotional richness, a place where every moment mattered, every gesture spoke volumes, and every day was a reminder that the bond between mother and son could be the most profound, sustaining, and beautiful love of all.